Take that note and bend it, Jeff. Wow. I can tell you that hearing that solo was electrifying for those of us coming up in the 60s. We never heard anything like that.
Holding in the way, that's what I heard them say. They used to heed the words he said, but that was yesterday. Gold will turn to gray, and youth will fade away. They'll never care about you, call you holding in the way.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to a special year-end episode of Old Men in Chairs. You know, we lost a lot of great artists this year, and I wanted to go back and remember them one more time before we pass on to a new year. So I'm going to show you little clips from the tributes that I did do to 5 of those artists. And I'm going to go back a little bit farther because this all started a year ago, right before Christmas, with the death of Dino Danelli, who you see on your screen, who was a drummer for the Young Rascals. I did do a tribute to him on December 20th, 2022. So that's close enough to count him as lost in the last year, thereabouts. I'll play a little bit of each tribute, and then in the description I will have links to all those tributes. So if you want to watch the full episodes, you can. So this is a little segment from the Rascals' all-time greatest hit, People Gotta Be Free, which was the #1 hit song in 1968, a very significant year in our country's history. Brings you back. I think this was actually recorded in 1968, and look at all those young people in the audience, and now you realize that those young people, like me, who just turned 72 a couple days ago, are now all in their 70s, and the performers from that era are either in their late 70s or already into their 80s if they haven't already died. So that era is gone. Not lost, because we have the record, but it's not coming back, although the philosophy espoused in this song is timeless. You know, treat people the way you want to be treated. Yeah, so there goes Dino, and it was just the beginning of a lot of losses. And the next one, I think, was Jeff Beck. I gotta confess that I made a grievous error in my Jeff Beck video. One of my favorite groups growing up was the Yardbirds, and I actually played drums in a rock and roll band in the 60s, and one of the songs that we did was Shape of Things to Come. And so when Jeff died, I wanted to pay tribute to him by doing that song. The only trouble was, as some people pointed out after I published the video, that's not actually Jeff Beck playing right there. That's Jimmy Page. I don't know, a couple tall, dark-haired English blokes, they looked the same to me. In any case, I was somewhat embarrassed to make that mistake. But I do justify it in saying that Jeff was the one who created the guitar part for Shapes of Things, and Jimmy at that point was pretty much just reproducing what Jeff had pioneered. Take that note and bend it, Jeff. Wow. I can tell you that hearing that solo was electrifying for those of us coming up in the 60s. We never heard anything like that. Not only the way You know, he distorts that sound and how loud he's playing. But, you know, it was almost like a little Indian raga there. That's not blues music he's playing. He's playing over the top of blues music, but he's playing something totally different. And he was really revolutionary in that respect. Now, later on in the year, I did feature Jeff, the real Jeff, in another reaction that I did, which was 5 different versions of Like a Rolling Stone, Who Did It Best. So I will put a link to that one if you want to hear the real Jeff Beck. But anyway, nobody's perfect, and that was one of my more embarrassing mistakes of 2023. Now, moving on, we lost the goddess, the queen of rock and roll this year, Tina Turner. I did a reaction actually a couple weeks before she died. I didn't know she was near the end. I just became aware of a song that she had recorded on the Carson show because I subscribed to the Johnny Carson YouTube channel, and it just happened to come up, Steel Claw. And I thought, what a great song. I hadn't heard it before. So let me set up a little bit of that for you.
It's just a television wonderland, just one more fairy tale about a rich bitch lying by the swimming pool in a cruise tube. It's easy living when you make the rules. Last Friday was the first time it took about a half of a minute on the stairway. It was child's play. The odds come out even when you give up believing in a cold steel tower. Trying to get a fortune down the knocking on the door, but I say no way, no way. Don't try to get out or there'll be hell to pay. I don't care who's right, who's wrong. Say it really doesn't matter when you're lying in the gutter. It's a seesaw, a long hard battle with a cold rock. It's what you get for messing with the steel saw.
Took my breath away. Wow. Oh my God. Of course, the first thing you gotta notice, the $1 Million Legs. Tina got her start as a dancer in the Ike Turner Revue. Eventually worked herself up to being the co-star of that, married Ike. Ike and Tina had a huge career in the 60s as a soul group. Proud Mary was one of their big songs. And then Ike was very abusive to her. And finally, in 1976, she left basically with the shirt on her back. She couldn't take it anymore. And she was kind of lost for about 5 years, wandering in the wilderness, didn't really have a music career. And then in the 1980s, she put together what's been called the greatest comeback of any musical star in history. Yeah. And from this point onward, she just had hit after hit, toured the world, and I think she holds the record for the largest live crowd to ever see a concert. Something over 200,000 people came out. I believe it was in Paris. And so thankfully, Tina's starlight will never die because we have so many records, not just this performance, but many, many concert performances and videos from her fabulous career. And she was really something special, especially to me in the 80s. I loved her Break Every Rule album. And in fact, after her death, I did another reaction to one of my all-time favorite Tina songs, which is Overnight Sensation. And I will also put a link to that song in here. But this is just an amazing performance, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. Now, later on in the summer, I believe, if I have my timing right, we lost a fellow who perhaps didn't have quite the star power of Tina Turner. I mean, who does, really? But he was the lead singer for Smashmouth. It may seem odd that a person of my age became a Smashmouth fan, but they had such a retro sound. It really was a throwback with the fuzz to the 60s and the Yardbirds sound. Loved that group. And their lead singer, Steve Harwell, died at a fairly young age, I guess. But he had a lot of drug abuse and stuff in his history. And so I did a tribute to them, of course, their greatest song, Walking on the Sun.
Clapping, man, what the hell happened? and some were spellbound, some were hellbound, some they fell down, and some got back up and fought back against the meltdown. And their kids were hippie chicks, all hypocrites, because fashion is smash on the true meaning of it.
So there is Steve in Happier Times in the official video of Walking on the Sun, which was a monster hit for the group. They kind of had a beach blanket bingo theme, which is even more retro. That's 50s style. But Steve had a great voice, the band was great, and let's hear a little bit of this song.
Their kids were hippie chicks, all hypocrites, because fashion is smash on the true meaning of it. So don't delay, act now, supplies are running out. Allow if you're still alive, 6 to 8 years to arrive. And if you follow them, maybe not tomorrow, but if the author shun, you might as well be walking on the sun.
I was a huge fan. I know they weren't really my generation, but I went to see them when they came here to our town, and I think I was by far the oldest person in the concert. You know, a bunch of college kids and me who was pushing 50. But loudest band I've ever heard, louder than Blue Cheer, who I saw back in the 60s. It was unbelievable. And of course, the group had already broken up, and Steve's drug problems probably didn't help the situation. But their first 2 albums, just chock full of great stuff. I probably prefer the first album as punk version of Smashmouth, you know, before they kind of went more pop in the second album. But it's all good. For our last tribute, we lost one of the real stars of American music, even though he was Canadian, and most of the band was Canadian. I'm talking, of course, about Robbie Robertson, who passed this summer. And he was kind of the leader, the lead guitarist, wrote a lot of the songs for the group. 4 of the 5 gentlemen were Canadians. Levon Helm, the drummer, was from Arkansas. But they had such an influence. They were the band that Bob Dylan holed up with at Big Pink after his motorcycle accident. And those basement tapes, and then the music that came from Big Pink, really invented what we call Americana music, which is still probably one of the most popular types of rock and roll out there. Did a reaction to their Canadian Driftwood song, which is a history lesson in itself, all about the history of the Cajun people that were forced out of Canada after the French were defeated by the English. So this particular video, as I say, it wasn't produced by the band, it was produced by a fan. It's like watching a history lesson because it includes all types of artwork and maps and statistics from that period that kind of, if you're an American, you may not be that familiar with the whole story, but the Cajuns came from Acadia, which on the map here you have the island of Acadia, or maybe it's a peninsula. A lot of them, French-speaking, mostly farmers and fishermen perhaps, were forced out of their homes because they didn't want to go along with the new regime when the British took over Canada. A lot of them ended up down in New Orleans and became known down there as Cajuns. I'm sorry I don't have a picture of Robbie, but he wrote this song, so you'll hear his words.
As a family, end up the enemy over what went down on the plains of Abraham. Acadian driftwood, gypsy tailwind, they call my home the land of snow. Canadian cold front rolling in, what a way to ride, oh what a way to go.
So that sets up the story. What went down on the plains of Abraham, that's the final battle in that war, at least the American part of the war. The British scaled up a cliff at Montreal in the middle of the night and surprised the French, and it was a very quick battle. It was about half an hour because the French didn't know that they were coming, and they set off a volley of guns that pretty much wiped out the French army on the spot. And that was really the end of the fighting. After that, they had a treaty, and the French basically gave up all of Canada. It had a very bad effect on these settlers whose homes were taken, as he just said. Beautiful singing on there. The band had 3 or 4 great singers in there, and they have great harmony. And the lead singing is by the drummer there, Levon Helm. He's just got such a beautiful voice. Unfortunately, with the death of Robbie, there's only one remaining member alive of the 5 original members. So all of these artists were really a huge part of my life. I loved all of these groups. The Young Rascals, probably the first that I heard. Jeff Beck and the Yardbirds followed quickly after that. The band with Robbie Robertson, they came out with their album, Big Pink, I think about the time I went to college in the late 60s. And then, of course, Tina, we knew about Tina as a soul singer, but she really came into her own when she became a solo singer in the 80s, and a huge part of my life. Even the Smashmouth. It's probably the only group, or one of the few groups from the 90s that I paid a lot of attention to. I bought both of their albums. I listened to them over and over again, and I really, really loved their sound. All of these groups were a key part of my life, and so it is sad to see some of the leading figures passing on. And by the way, I just had my birthday, so now I'm 73. So who knows how much longer the old man will be able to sit in this chair and do this. Hope you enjoyed reminiscing a little bit about these great artists. And if you want to hear more, like I say, the links for everything I've talked about are in the descriptions. Happy New Year.